She quietly paid a stranger's bill. The crime lord stood up and gave one order. Maya Chen's credit card didn't decline when she paid for a stranger's lunch at Montague's. That should have been her first warning that today would ruin everything. Hey, before we dive into what happens next, if you're hooked on this story, do me a favor and subscribe. We drop new stories like this every week, and honestly, this one's just getting good. You won't want to miss it. Normal people didn't give away money they desperately needed. Struggling social workers certainly didn't pay $87 for some tired businessman's meal when they had 3 overdue medical bills and an eviction notice burning a hole in their messenger bag. Smart women didn't perform random acts of kindness in restaurants where the wrong gesture could get you killed. But Maya just stood there at the host stand, receipt in hand, watching the maitre d' glance nervously between her and the exhausted man in the gray suit at table 9, the man whose lunch she'd just anonymously paid for, trying to understand why everyone in Montague's had suddenly gone still. The piano player's fingers hesitated over the keys. The sommelier froze mid-pour. Even the couple at table 3, who'd been arguing in urgent whispers about offshore accounts, had gone completely silent, their eyes fixed on something behind Maya. She turned slowly. 2 men in immaculate suits had risen from table 6, their movements synchronized, precise, predatory. They weren't looking at her. They were looking at the man in gray, who had also stood, his coffee cup still in hand, his entire demeanor transformed from exhausted to something Maya couldn't quite name. Dangerous, maybe. Or powerful. The man, Victor, though Maya didn't know his name yet, walked toward the maitre d' with a kind of quiet authority that made people step back without thinking. He moved like someone who had never been told no, like someone who had never needed to raise his voice to be heard. Who paid my bill? His voice was soft. Calm. The kind of calm that preceded hurricanes. The maitre d', a man who'd worked in upscale restaurants for 30 years and had served presidents and celebrities without breaking a sweat, actually stuttered. A young woman, sir. She didn't want to be acknowledged. She's already. Where? One word. Just one word, and the entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. The maitre d' pointed at Maya before he could stop himself. Victor's eyes found hers across the space, gray eyes, cold and calculating, the eyes of someone who had looked at violence and found it boring. For a moment, Maya forgot how to breathe. This wasn't gratitude she was seeing. This was assessment, evaluation, the kind of look a predator gives prey before deciding whether it's worth the hunt. 3 weeks ago, Victor said, his voice carrying despite its softness, my daughter died. She was 6 years old. Leukemia. The best doctors in the world, the most expensive treatments money could buy, and none of it mattered. The restaurant was a tomb now. Even the kitchen had gone silent. Today is her birthday, Victor continued, still looking at Maya with those terrible, empty eyes. I came here to decide something. To make a choice about endings. And then a stranger, a woman I've never met who knows nothing about me, paid for my lunch with money she clearly cannot afford to lose. He took 3 steps forward. The 2 men from table 6 moved with him like shadows. Maya's survival instincts finally kicked in. She should run. She should apologize. She should do literally anything except stand there like an idiot, but her feet wouldn't move. Something in Victor's eyes held her frozen. Not fear exactly, but recognition. She saw grief there. She saw exhaustion. She saw the same thing she'd seen in her own mirror every morning since Lily died. Someone barely holding on. What's your name? Victor asked. Maya. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Maya Chen. Maya Chen. He repeated it like he was memorizing it, testing how it felt in his mouth. Do you know who I am? She shook her head. She should have known. Everyone who worked in the South District should have known. But Maya lived in a bubble of community centers and grant applications and trying to save teenagers from the same gang violence that had killed her sister. She didn't pay attention to the power players, the crime lords, the men who moved through the city like sharks through water.
Victor smiled.
It wasn't a kind smile. Good, he said. That means what you did was real. He turned to the 2 men flanking him, Hard men with dangerous eyes and expensive watches. Ivan. Sergei. Find out everything about her. Everything. Where she lives, where she works, who she loves, what she fears. I want to know what newspaper she reads and what brand of coffee she buys, and whether she has a parking ticket from 2019. Ivan, the taller of the two, nodded once. Sharp. Efficient. And then, Victor continued, his eyes never leaving Maya's face. Protect her. 24/7. I don't care what it costs. I don't care what you have to do. She doesn't get a paper cut without someone answering to me. Understood. Boss, Sergei said carefully, Dmitry Kozlov has been. I don't care about Dmitry. Victor's voice dropped to something colder than winter. This woman gave away money she needed to help a stranger. In this city. In this world. That either makes her the stupidest person alive or, he paused, and for the first time, something human flickered in his eyes. Or, it makes her someone worth saving. Find out which. He turned back to Maya, who was still frozen, still trying to process what was happening. You can go now, Maya-chun. Continue your life. Do whatever it is you do. But know this, you've been marked. Not as a target. As something far more dangerous. He leaned in slightly, close enough that she could smell his cologne, expensive and subtle. As someone I'm interested in. And in my world, interest is a currency more valuable than gold and more deadly than poison. I don't understand, Maya whispered. You will. Victor stepped back, and the temperature in the room seemed to rise 10 degrees. Ivan will be in touch. Don't try to refuse. Don't try to run. You can't afford to make an enemy of me, and you definitely can't afford to make an enemy of the people who'll come for you once they find out I'm protecting you. He walked past her, his lieutenants falling into step behind him, and the restaurant began to breathe again. Conversations resumed. The piano player found his melody. The couple at table 3 went back to their argument about offshore accounts. But Maya stayed frozen at the host's stand, receipt crumpling in her trembling hand, finally understanding what she'd done. She'd paid for Viktor Volkov's lunch. The Viktor Volkov. The man who controlled the South District like a king controlled his kingdom. The man whose name appeared in police reports and newspaper investigations and whispered warnings. The man who could make people disappear with a phone call and make businesses thrive with a handshake. And she'd given him $87 because he looked sad. Maya's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Black SUV outside. Don't be alarmed. You're being watched. For your protection. We'll talk soon. She looked out Montague's front windows. Sure enough, a black SUV with tinted windows sat at the curb, engine idling, occupant invisible. Her second text came from Keisha, her best friend, and the community center's volunteer coordinator. Where are you? Fire inspection showed up early, and they're threatening to shut us down unless we fix the electrical by Monday. We need $5,000 we don't have. Maya stared at both messages, at the receipt in her hand, at the SUV outside, and finally, her hand started to shake. Because she understood now. This wasn't gratitude. This wasn't even protection. This was the beginning of something she couldn't control, couldn't escape, couldn't fix with good intentions and hard work. She had done one small kindness for a stranger, and somehow, impossibly, she had just stepped into the crosshairs of a world where kindness was currency, protection was prison, and the most dangerous thing you could do was make Viktor Volkov care about you. The maitre d' approached cautiously. Miss Jin? Are you all right? Maya looked at him. This man who had watched the whole thing unfold, who had worked at Montague's long enough to know exactly who Viktor Volkov was and what his interests meant, and laughed. It came out sharp and slightly hysterical. No, she said honestly. I don't think I am. For what it's worth, the maitre d' said quietly, glancing at the door Victor had just walked through. I've worked here 15 years. I've seen him eat alone at that table maybe a dozen times. He never smiles. Never speaks to anyone except his men. Never tips more than exactly 15%. He paused. Today, he left $1,000 on the table. And he looked at you like you just gave him something he thought he'd lost forever. What? Maya whispered. Hope, the maitre d' said simply. You gave Viktor Volkov hope. God help you, Miss Chen. Because that might be the most dangerous gift you've ever given anyone. He walked away, leaving Maya alone with her buzzing phone, her racing heart, and the black SUV outside that would follow her home. That would follow her everywhere now. Forever. The South District looked like God had given up on it. Graffiti-covered walls. Vacant storefronts stared with broken window eyes. Young men in hoodies watched Maya's car with menace, knowing police stopped responding years ago. But there, impossibly bright against decay, sat Hope Community Center, sunshine yellow with blue trim. Maya had painted it herself because bright spaces made people feel safer. Inside, 12-year-old Marcus struggled with long division. Maya crouched beside him, patient. Break it into smaller pieces. You can't solve everything at once. He looked at her with eyes too old for his face. That's not just about math, is it? No, she admitted. The walls displayed handmade decorations, photos of past students who'd made college, quotes in Maya's careful handwriting. Everything donated or scraped together from foundations that saw the South District as a tax write-off. Keisha found her at 9 p.m., buried in paperwork. You're burning out. Come get dinner. Can't. Fire inspections Monday. Lily wouldn't want you killing yourself. Maya's hand stopped. For one moment, she was 16, laughing with her sister. Then gunshots, screaming, blood. She blinked it away. Ivy Fine. Her apartment. Minimal furniture. Lily's photo frozen at 12, unopened medical bills. The strangeness started Tuesday. Mr. Patterson knocked, apologetic. Bookkeeping error. You're paid through December. But I'm 3 months behind. My mistake, he repeated, fleeing. Wednesday, gang members near the center vanished. Thursday, Keisha burst in. $10,000 appeared in our account. Maybe the universe is paying us back for good karma, Maya said, unconvinced. Across the city, in a private office where politicians confessed sins and criminals made deals, Ivan laid a folder on Victor's desk. Maya Chun, 29. Parents died when she was 20. Raised her sister alone until Lily was killed in a gang shooting. She's run that center ever since. Ivan hesitated. Boss, she paid your bill with money meant for insulin. She chose your lunch over her medication. Victor studied Maya's photo. Young face, tired eyes, stubborn chin. No one's done something for me without wanting something in return since. He didn't finish. Since before his daughter died. Keep the protection discreet. Boss, Dmitry Kozlov's people are sniffing around the South District. If they find out, then make sure they don't. Victor's tone ended it. But in shadows outside Hope Community Center, Alexei had figured it out. He watched Maya lock up at midnight, oblivious to the black SUV following her. He raised his camera, made a call. We've got something. Volkov's men are protecting some community center. There's a woman. Dmitry Kozlov's voice smiled. Is she pretty? Does it matter? Everything matters when Viktor Volkov finally gives a damn. Dmitry laughed, cruel. If he's protecting her, she's valuable. And if she's valuable, she's leverage. The line went dead. Maya drove home, unaware her $87 kindness had made her the most dangerous woman in New York. Maya arrives at the center to find someone tried to break in overnight but fled when some guys in a black car showed up, according to the homeless man, Jerome, who sleeps in the doorway. Detective Carver shows up, supposedly investigating the attempted break-in. He's all false charm and barely hidden contempt. Ms. Chun, you're getting a lot of attention lately. New donations, mysterious protectors. You making friends in interesting places? Maya has no idea what he means. Carver hands her his card. When you figure out what's going on, give me a call. For your own safety. Escalation. Later that week, Maya witnesses something that shatters her willful ignorance. While picking up supplies, she sees a man harassing a young mother in a parking lot, attempting to mug her. Before Maya can intervene, 2 men in dark suits appear, Victor's men, though she doesn't know it, and the mugger runs. One of the men, Ivan, tips his hat to Maya. You should be more careful, Miss Chen. Not everyone in this neighborhood has good intentions. Maya is shaken. These men know her name. This isn't random good luck. The research, Keisha, who's street smart in ways Maya isn't, does some investigating. She discovers rumors. Someone powerful has put protection on the community center. When she says the name Volkov to one of her cousins who's peripherally involved in that world, he goes pale. Tell Maya to be very, very careful. If Viktor Volkov is interested in her, that's either the best thing or the worst thing that's ever happened to her. Meanwhile, Dmitry acts. Cut to Dmitry Kozlov in his headquarters, a converted warehouse. He's younger than Viktor, handsome in a dangerous way, and casually cruel. He's beating information out of a low-level member of Viktor's organization. So the old man has a soft spot, Dmitry muses. A social worker in the South District. He paid her rent, protected her building, scared off my dealers. Why? He circles the bound man. What makes this woman special? When he doesn't get answers, Dmitry makes a decision. If Viktor wants her protected, that means she matters. And if she matters, she's leverage. The attack. Maya is leaving the center late, again, when a van pulls up. Men grab her. She fights. Pepper spray, car keys as a weapon, but she's outmatched. Just before they drag her into the van, gunfire erupts. Viktor's security team, who've been shadowing her, engage Dmitry's men. It's brutal, efficient, and terrifying. Maya, caught in the middle, sees violence up close for the first time since Lily's death. When it's over, Ivan approaches her carefully, hands visible. Miss Chun, I know you're frightened, but you need to come with us now. It's not safe. Chapter ending. Maya, in shock, is escorted to a black SUV. As it pulls away from the scene, police sirens wailing in the distance. The driver makes a call. We have her. We're bringing her to you. In a penthouse office overlooking the city, Viktor Volkov, now in an impeccably tailored suit, looking nothing like the tired man from the restaurant, turns from the window. Prepare the secure room, he says. And give me everything we have on Dmitry Kozlov. He's made this personal. Fade to black. Runtime, 8 to 9 minutes emotional beat. Maya's world irrevocably changes. Fear and confusion hook. First face-to-face meeting wit.
Ha Victory Shimanant.
The smell of scorched metal and stale coffee hung heavy in the air when Maya arrived at the center. Jerome, who usually sat in stoic silence by the entryway, was uncharacteristically agitated. He told her about the shadows that had tried to force the lock at midnight, only to be chased off by a sleek black car that had appeared like a ghost. The confusion only deepened when Detective Carver arrived, his polished shoes looking out of place against the cracked pavement. He leaned against the doorframe, a smirk playing on his lips that didn't reach his cold eyes. He spoke of mysterious protectors and interesting friends, his voice dripping with a false concern that felt more like a threat. When he pressed his card into her hand, advising her to call for her own safety, Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the morning breeze. The veil finally tore open later that week. In a nearby parking lot, Maya watched a man corner a young mother, his hand reaching for her bag. Before Maya could even shout, two figures in dark, impeccably tailored suits stepped from the shadows. They didn't draw weapons, they didn't need to. Their mere presence sent the mugger sprinting into the alleyways. One of them, a man with a jagged scar and an oddly polite demeanor named Ivan, tipped his hat to her. You should be more careful, Miss Chun, he said, his voice a low rumble. Not everyone in this neighborhood has good intentions. The realization that they knew her name turned her blood to ice. Back at the center, Keisha's street smarts confirmed Maya's worst fears. A few hushed phone calls to cousins in the neighborhood brought back a name that made the room feel smaller, Volkov. The warning was clear. If Viktor Volkov was watching her, Maya was standing on a line between salvation and a slow-motion wreck. Miles away, in a warehouse that breathed industrial malice, Dmitry Kozlov didn't care for warnings. He moved with a predatory grace around a bloodied captive, his handsome face twisted into a mask of casual cruelty. To Dmitry, Maya wasn't a person. She was a variable in an equation of power. If the old man has a soft spot for a social worker, Dmitry mused, his voice smooth as silk, then she isn't just a woman. She's leverage. The reckoning came as the sun dipped below the skyline. Maya was locking up when a van screeched to a halt, the side door sliding open like a hungry mouth. She fought with everything she had, stabbing at eyes with her keys, the acrid mist of pepper spray filling the air, but the hands grabbing her were too many. Then, the world exploded. Gunfire shattered the silence, a rhythmic, brutal efficiency that spoke of professional killers. Caught in the crossfire, Maya collapsed to the pavement, the violence a terrifying echo of the night she lost Lily. When the smoke cleared, Ivan was there again, his hands raised in a gesture of peace that felt surreal amidst the carnage. "It isn't safe," he insisted, ushering her toward a waiting SUV as sirens wailed in the distance. As the car sped away, a phone call was placed. High above the city, Viktor Volkov stood in a penthouse office, the tired man from the restaurant replaced by a king preparing for war. "Prepare the secure room," he commanded, his eyes reflecting the cold city lights. Dmitri has made this personal. Maya had expected a warehouse. Perhaps a basement with exposed pipes and the smell of mildew, something that matched the violence of the alley. Instead, the elevator opened into a penthouse that could have graced the pages of Architectural Digest. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city's glittering skyline. Original artwork, she recognized a Rothko, hung on walls the color of expensive whiskey. An entire wall devoted to leather-bound books that looked actually read, their spines creased with use. It was civilized, cultured, refined. Somehow that made it more frightening. The door opened, and Maya's confusion crystallized into something sharper. It was him, the tired man from Montague's. 3 weeks ago, he said without preamble, "You paid for my lunch at Montague's. You spent money you needed for your own medication to buy a meal for a stranger. Do you remember?" Maya did remember. But what did a $20 lunch have to do with being dragged through hell?
I'm Viktor Volkov.
He let the name settle like ash. "And because you showed me kindness, I ordered my organization to protect you. What happened tonight was my fault. My rival, Dmitry Kozlov, discovered my interest in you and decided to use you against me." The words penetrated slowly, then all at once.
Viktor Volkov.
The Viktor Volkov, the ghost the news whispered about, the shadow behind half the city's corruption. And she'd bought him lunch. Anger overrode terror. "You brought this into my life? Your crime war? People could have died tonight." But they didn't. His voice remained maddeningly calm, "Because my people were there, and they will continue to be there, whether you want them or not." "So, what? I'm your prisoner? You're my responsibility. There's a difference." Maya demanded to go home, to be left alone. Viktor explained with the patience of someone describing weather patterns that it wasn't that simple. "Dmitri knows who you are now. Refusing my protection won't make you safe. It will make you an easier target." Anton appeared with water and food she hadn't asked for, but desperately needed. Unlike Viktor's austere presence, Anton radiated warmth, the kind of person who'd been someone's favorite uncle before life took darker turns. "Look, I know this is insane," he said, settling across from her like they were old friends. "But Viktor's serious about protection. He doesn't do this, care about civilians, I mean. But that thing you did, paying for his meal, it got to him. He's been different." "Different how?" "Less cold. More human." Which probably sounds crazy given what you just saw, but in this world, that matters. When Viktor returned, he carried a proposal like a contract negotiation. She could go home, continue her work, but his security team would maintain discreet protection.
24 juillet surveillance.
In exchange, she would help him understand something he'd lost touch with, why people like her still believed in helping others despite living in a broken world. "I don't need your therapy," Maya said coldly.
No.
"But I need to understand why you gave away money you couldn't afford to lose for someone you'd never met. Because in my world, that doesn't happen. Everyone wants something." Maya considered her options, which weren't really options at all. Refusing protection meant endangering her kids at the center, the ones who already had too few safe adults in their lives. "I go home tonight. Your men stay outside, not inside my life." And if I find out you're using me for something criminal, I go straight to the police. Victor almost smiled. Agreed. Though the police are less trustworthy than you think. Across town, Agent Marcus Webb replayed surveillance footage for the 7th time, his coffee long cold. Victor's men, caught on camera in a public incident. Finally, the justification he needed for a full investigation. He reached for his phone. In a darker corner of the city, Detective Carver pocketed an envelope thick with cash. Keep me informed about Victor's new pet project, Dimitri said, smoke curling from his cigarette. I want to know everything about this Maya Chin. The SUV pulled up to Maya's building as dawn threatened the horizon. Through her apartment window, she could see Ivan settling into watch duty, his silhouette patient and immovable. She closed the curtain, slid down the wall, and finally allowed herself to cry. Great, shaking sobs that emptied her of everything the night had poured in. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. I'm sorry for what my world has cost you. Sleep safely. Maya threw the phone across the room, listening to it clatter against the baseboard. Outside, the city stirred awake, indifferent to the fact that her life had just been rewritten by a $20 act of kindness she could barely afford. Maya's new reality unfolded in a series of small surrenders. Different cars parked on her street, a gray sedan on Monday, a black SUV on Wednesday, a nondescript Toyota by Friday. Different faces behind the wheels, but always the same watchful presence. The community center thrived in ways it never had before. Graffiti disappeared overnight. Drug dealers found other corners. Her kids walked home without looking over their shoulders. She researched Victor obsessively at 2 a.m., reading articles about alleged crimes that never quite stuck, charges that evaporated before trial. But she also found his legitimate empire, restaurants where celebrities dined, construction projects that employed hundreds, real estate developments that revitalized forgotten neighborhoods. The lunch invitation arrived as a polite summons she couldn't refuse. Maya expected intimidation, perhaps threats. Instead, she found Victor deep in conversation with Father Miguel, discussing funding for a youth outreach program. The priest's gratitude was genuine, his handshake warm as he left. Not everything I do is criminal, Miss Chun, Victor said, gesturing for her to sit. Some of it is simply business. Some of it is restitution. You can't buy redemption.
No.
But I can prevent future sins. The boys I employ at my construction company, they'd otherwise be recruited by people like Dimitri. The families I help with rent, they don't have to choose between food and housing. It's not redemption. It's pragmatism. Over the following weeks, Maya witnessed the ecosystem's complexity. Anton mediating disputes between street vendors, his easy charm preventing violence. Victor refusing to allow drugs in his territories. She'd heard him on the phone, his voice steel. I don't care about the profit. No drugs where children live. The loyalty his people showed wasn't born from fear. They called him by name. Their families attended his restaurants for special occasions, treated like honored guests.
But she also saw the cost.
A rival gang member beaten so badly he couldn't walk for encroaching on Victor's territory. The way conversation stopped when his men entered rooms. The violence that lurked beneath the peace like bones beneath skin. She confronted him in his office, her anger overriding caution. How do you live with the contradictions? You help people and you hurt people sometimes in the same day. There are no contradictions. This is simply the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. I protect more people than I harm. That's not morality, it's mathematics. And that's enough for you? For the first time, his armor cracked. It has to be. Because the alternative is admitting that everything I've built is meaningless. Dimitri escalated cleverly, targeting what Victor couldn't protect with bullets. Gang symbols appeared overnight across the community center's walls. Rumors spread. Maya was Victor's mistress, his pawn, his whore. Funding sources received anonymous calls. Donors suddenly remembered prior commitments. Maya wanted blood. Victor refused. You don't understand, she argued, her voice breaking. My work is all I have. If he destroys my reputation, I can't help anyone. Victor's response was quiet, intense. He's trying to bait me into overreacting. If I kill him, his organization retaliates against civilians. This is chess, not battle. Anton became her interpreter, explaining Victor's world in the language of someone who still remembered the normal one. Driving her home one evening, he offered context she hadn't asked for, but desperately needed. Victor's not always been like this. Cold, I mean. He had a daughter once. She died of leukemia when she was 6. His wife left him shortly after, couldn't stand that his money couldn't save their child. Since then, he's been absent from himself. Until you paid for his lunch. Maya's throat tightened. I didn't know. He doesn't talk about it. But I think that day at the restaurant, he was at his lowest. Thinking about endings. And then a stranger did something kind for no reason. It reminded him people like you exist. Both Detective Carver and Agent Webb made their moves. Carver offered protection if she'd inform. Webb presented evidence of Victor's alleged crimes, pressure wrapped in professional courtesy. Maya refused both. Carver was obviously corrupt, and Webb saw her as a tool, not a person. The community meeting about the vandalism felt like a trial. When someone asked if she was involved with those people, Maya faced her choice. She could deny everything, distance herself, reclaim her reputation. Instead, I don't control who decides to protect this neighborhood. But I know that since they arrived, we've had 0 gang shootings, 3 fewer robberies, and our kids can walk home from school without being harassed. I'm not going to apologize for that. Silence filled the room like water. Later, Victor watched news footage of her statement. The faintest smile crossed his face. She's braver than she knows. Anton's expression darkened. Or more stubborn. She just painted a target on herself. Victor's smile evaporated. Then we make sure that target is protected, whatever it costs. Maya believed she'd found the solution. Sitting across from Victor in his office, she pitched it with the conviction of someone who still thought problems could be solved with the right words. You cooperate with Agent Webb. The FBI gives you immunity in exchange for testimony. Your criminal empire ends, but your legitimate businesses stay protected. Everyone wins. Victor listened with the patience of someone watching a child solve a puzzle with missing pieces. You think the FBI wants cooperation, he said finally. They want a trophy. There's no scenario where I testify and walk away. Then, what's your plan? Live like this forever? Looking over your shoulder, fighting rivals, until one day someone gets lucky. Victor had no answer. Anton, surprisingly, supported her. Boss, maybe she's right. Maybe this is the exit we've been looking for. Victor studied Maya's face, the desperate hope there, the belief that goodness could still triumph through compromise. He was too tired to keep arguing. One meeting.
No promises.
Marcus Webb was ecstatic when Maya called. He agreed to come alone to a neutral location, an abandoned warehouse on the waterfront. Maya insisted on being present to mediate, to ensure fairness. What Maya didn't know, Marcus was bringing a strike team. What no one knew, Detective Carver had compromised that team. Dmitri was planning to eliminate both Victor and his FBI problem in one bloody stroke. The warehouse smelled of rust and old rain. Maya, Victor, Anton, and 2 guards arrived first. Marcus came with 2 agents, his smile too confident. Mr. Volkov, I'm prepared to offer you a reduced sentence in exchange for testimony against your organization and Dmitry Kozlov. Victor's expression remained neutral. Reduced from what? You have nothing that would stand up in court. I have Ms. Chen's testimony about everything she's witnessed. Maya's stomach dropped.
What?
I never agreed. You confirmed Victor Volkov's criminal organization has been operating in the South District. That's conspiracy charges, Ms. Chen. Unless you cooperate. The betrayal hit like cold water. Maya looked at Victor, expecting fury. Instead, she found resignation. As if this confirmed everything he'd believed about the world, about people, about hope. Gunfire erupted before she could speak. Dimitri's men stormed from multiple entry points, muzzle flashes illuminating the warehouse's darkness. Victor's security engaged. Marcus's agents returned fire. The tactical meeting became a slaughterhouse. Anton shoved Maya behind a concrete pillar, his body a shield. Victor fought toward her with brutal efficiency, each shot precisely placed. Marcus called for backup, his voice panicked. This wasn't supposed to happen. Dmitri entered like a conductor arriving to finish his symphony. He spotted Victor pinned down, raised his weapon for a clear shot. Anton moved, without thinking, threw himself into the bullet's path. The shot hit center mass. He crumpled. Maya's scream tore from somewhere primal. Victor roared, grief and rage distilled into sound, and returned fire with devastating precision. Dmitri's men began retreating. This was costing too much. Sirens approached. Dmitri vanished into the chaos. Marcus tried to arrest Victor, but there was too much confusion, too many bodies, too much blood obscuring culpability. Anton grabbed Maya's hand with fading strength. Not your fault. Never your fault. You tried to fix everything. That's who you are. He looked at Victor. Boss, get her out. She doesn't belong in this. Anton died in Victor's arms, blood pooling on concrete that had seen too much violence. Victor's men evacuated before police saturated the area. In the car, Maya tried to apologize through shock. Victor cut her off, his voice colder than she'd ever heard. This is what happens when civilians play in my world. Anton knew the risks. You didn't. Go home, Miss Chen. Our arrangement is over. You're done protecting me? I'm done letting you believe you can save people like me. Maya stumbled into her apartment, numb. Anton's blood had dried on her hands, literally and figuratively. She scrubbed in the bathroom until her skin was raw, until the water ran clear, but the stain remained beneath. The news played. Shootout at waterfront warehouse leaves one dead, FBI tight-lipped about investigation. Victor sat alone in his office, Anton's ID badge clutched in his hand. He wasn't crying, he was beyond tears, but something fundamental had broken. The last person who'd called him by his first name was gone. Across the city, Dmitri raised his glass. Volkov's weak. He cares about that woman. Next time, we go straight for her. His men laughed, already planning. The screen faded to black, leaving only the sound of Maya's ragged breathing and Victor's terrible silence. 3 days after Anton's death, Maya's apartment had become a tomb. Takeout containers rotted on the counter. Her phone's voicemail was full. Keisha visited, brought soup that went cold, tried to reach through the fog of guilt and grief. Maya stared at walls and saw the warehouse, saw Anton falling, saw the blood on her hands that no amount of scrubbing could erase. The community center operated without her. Kids asked where Miss Maya was. No one had good answers. Victor attended Anton's funeral, a small, private affair where rain fell like punctuation. He spoke to no one, his silence more terrible than any eulogy. His remaining lieutenants watched nervously as he moved assets, called in favors, arranged pieces on a board only he could see. Ivan approached carefully. Boss, you've been moving assets, calling in favors. What are you planning? To end this. Permanently. Ivan understood immediately. Victor was planning overwhelming force against Dmitri, violent, public, likely suicidal. Boss, Anton wouldn't want. Don't tell me what Anton would want. Victor's voice could have cut glass. He died protecting my mistake. My weakness. I won't repeat it. Dmitri struck while Victor planned vengeance. His men firebombed the community center mid-afternoon. 3 children hospitalized with burns and smoke inhalation. The news showed Maya's mural, the one depicting hope and community, blackened and peeling. Something broke free in Maya then. Grief gave way to rage, paralysis to purpose. She called Victor. He didn't answer. She went to his restaurant, demanded entry. Ivan intercepted her at the door. He doesn't want to see you. You need to go home. Children are in the hospital because of me. Because I thought I could bridge 2 worlds that don't touch. I need to fix this. You can't fix this. Only Victor can, and what he's planning, it's not something you want to be part of. Maya understood. War was coming. More bodies would pile up until someone ran out of soldiers or will. Marcus Webb pressured her to testify, to help dismantle Victor's organization before he escalated. Detective Carver suggested she could mediate between Victor and Dimitri, offering herself as neutral ground. A direct message arrived from Dimitri himself. Meet me. Alone. I'll call off my attacks on your neighborhood. Victor's war isn't yours. 3 paths, all leading to blood. Maya visited Lily's grave as dusk settled over the cemetery. She collapsed against the headstone, words tumbling out in broken sobs. I don't know what to do. I tried to help. I always try to help. And people keep getting hurt. Anton's dead. Those kids are in the hospital. It's my fault, Lily. Everything is my fault because I couldn't just mind my own business. She stayed until darkness swallowed the last light, wrestling with impossible choices. Accept Victor's protection and watch him destroy himself. Meet Dimitri and hope a monster kept his word. Testify against Victor and betray the man who'd protected her. Walk away from everything, leave the city, abandon her center, escape into anonymity. As she stood to leave, moonlight caught the inscription on Lily's headstone, words Maya herself had chosen. She cared for everyone. Not she avenged everyone, or she destroyed everyone who hurt her. She cared. The realization hit like dawn breaking. Maya had been carrying Lily's death as a burden requiring atonement through suffering. But that wasn't what Lily would want. Lily would want her to care for people, all people, even complicated ones like Victor. She'd been so focused on maintaining moral purity that she'd failed to make practical choices that actually helped. Her principles had prevented her from using Victor's resources effectively. Her black and white thinking had blinded her to solutions requiring compromise. Maya didn't meet with Dimitri, didn't testify to Marcus, didn't walk away. Instead, she called Victor and said simply, I need to see you. I have a plan. And I need you to trust me the way you trusted me when you gave that order at Montague's. Victor, surprised by her tone, agreed to meet. In his office, Maya laid out a different approach, not peace, not war, but something in between. She needed his resources, his intelligence network, his connections. But it wouldn't be his plan. It would be hers. You want to use my organization, Victor said slowly, to protect civilians. Yes. That makes you complicit in everything I am. No, Maya said firmly. It makes me practical. Anton died because I tried to find a perfect solution. There isn't one. But there's a better solution than what you're planning. Victor studied her for a long moment, seeing something new in her eyes. Not innocence lost, but wisdom gained through fire. What do you need? The screen faded to black, leaving the question hanging like smoke. Maya spread maps and files across Victor's conference table with the precision of a general planning a campaign. She'd transformed in the days since the cemetery. Grief hadn't disappeared, but it had crystallized into something harder, more focused. Victor watched, impressed despite himself. Her plan unfolded in layers. Evacuate the community center under pretense of structural repairs. Use Victor's intelligence network to predict Dimitri's next move. Coordinate with honest cops, bypassing Carver, to respond when needed. Lure Dimitri into a trap where he'd be caught publicly, undeniably. Victor identified the flaws immediately. Dimitri won't fall for an obvious trap. He needs to believe he's winning. Then we give him what he wants.
Me. No.
Victor's refusal was absolute. I'm the only bait he cares about. He wants to hurt you through me. We use that. Ivan supported Maya's plan. So did Victor's other lieutenants, not from desire to risk her, but because it was the least bloody option. Victor's alternative was open warfare that would consume the neighborhood in violence. Finally, Victor agreed, his jaw tight. I control the security. Every angle, every contingency. If anything goes wrong, we extract you immediately. The preparation became a symphony of calculated deception. Victor's people wired the community center with hidden cameras and microphones, devices so small they disappeared into outlet covers and smoke detectors. Honest cops, including a lieutenant who owed Victor his daughter's college tuition, were briefed on their role. Maya's staff and neighborhood families were evacuated, told it was for safety, not given the why that would terrify them. Marcus Webb received carefully measured information, enough that FBI resources would be available, not enough that he could interfere or take control. Dmitri believed Maya had been abandoned. False rumors planted by Victor's people painted her as discarded, unprotected, vulnerable. He planned to kidnap her, torture her on live stream to humiliate Victor, then kill them both in a finale that would cement his dominance. Detective Carver reported Maya's location to Dmitri, believing he was facilitating the gangster's victory. What Carver didn't know, Victor had compiled evidence of every corrupt dealing, every payoff, every betrayal, ready to release if anything went wrong. The night before the operation, Maya and Victor talked in his office while the city sprawled below them, indifferent to tomorrow's stakes. "You understand this might not work," Victor said. Dmitri could deviate from his pattern. His men could panic and start shooting. "I might not reach you in time." "I understand." "Then why are you doing this?" "Because Anton died believing I could make a difference. Because those kids in the hospital deserve better. Because you deserve better than spending your life fighting until someone kills you." Victor was quiet for a long moment. "I don't deserve anything." "That's not true. You ordered your men to protect me because I paid for a lunch. That man in the restaurant, the one who is tired and defeated and alone, he deserves something better than this." Victor's vulnerability emerged like something long buried finally reaching surface. "I don't know if that man exists anymore." "He does. I've seen him." Maya studied his face in the dim light. "If this works, what will you do? Dmitri will be arrested, but you'll still be you." "I've been thinking about that. Anton told me once that organizations don't need to be criminal to have power. That I could use what I've built for something else." He looked at her. "I never believed him until I met you." The day of the operation arrived with cruel sunshine. Maya entered the community center alone, knowing Dmitri's men were watching from vehicles parked strategically around the block. She sat at her desk, going through the motions of work, shuffling papers, checking her computer, performing normalcy while her heart hammered against her ribs. Outside, in various positions, Victor's people, honest cops, FBI agents who thought they were surveilling Maya for their own investigation. Several blocks away, Dmitri watched on a monitor, his smile predatory. "She's alone. Victor's abandoned her. Move in." In his own surveillance van, Victor watched every camera angle, every entrance, every shadow. Every muscle was tense, coiled spring waiting to release. Ivan stood beside him. "Boss, are you sure about this?" Victor didn't take his eyes off Maya's image on the screen. "No." "But she is, and that's enough." The screen faded to black, leaving only the sound of footsteps approaching the community center's door. Dmitri's men entered the community center like a flood, 10 armed men expecting minimal resistance. Maya stood from her desk, hands visible, showing no fear though terror sang through her veins. Dmitri entered last, grinning like a man who'd already won. The famous Maya chin. Victor's weakness. "Do you know how long I've wanted this? I know exactly who you are, Dmitri Kozlov. And I know this is a mistake." Dmitri's laugh echoed off walls that had heard children's laughter just days before. "Did Victor teach you to be brave? Or stupid?" Outside, Victor watched every camera angle. The plan required Dmitri to make explicit threats, evidence that would hold in court. But Dmitri was too smart to monologue like movie villains. Instead, he ordered his men to search the building. "Victor's not stupid enough to leave her unprotected. Find his people and kill them." This wasn't the script. Victor made the call. "All teams, get ready to breach. But wait for my signal." Dmitri's men discovered the hidden cameras. Dmitri didn't panic. He adapted with the ease of someone who'd survived this long by never being predictable. "Change of plans. We're leaving. And she's coming with us." He grabbed Maya, used her as a shield. His men formed a protective circle moving toward the exit.
Victor cursed.
If they reached a vehicle, everything failed. "All teams move in. Do not let them leave." The community center became a war zone. Victor's security breached from multiple entry points. FBI agents, hearing gunfire, moved in without clearance.
Anis kapsera ivden mase.
Dimitri's men, cornered, fought back with desperate ferocity. Maya was still Dimitri's captive as he dragged her toward a back exit. Victor fought through to reach her, ruthlessly efficient, each movement economical and deadly. Bodies fell. The violence was brutal, terrifying, real. Dimitri made it to a back hallway with Maya and 3 men. Victor and Ivan trapped them there. Cops closed in from the other direction. Dimitri was cornered and knew it. "You should have stayed away from her, Victor," Dimitri said, gun to Maya's head. "She made you soft." Victor's weapon was raised but useless. Any shot risked hitting Maya. "Let her go. This is between us."
No.
This is about proving that kindness is weakness. That your empire is finished. That. Maya threw herself backward into him. It wasn't skilled or graceful. She wasn't an action hero, but it was unexpected enough that his gun shifted away from her head for a split second. Victor took the shot. Dimitri went down, wounded but alive. His men, seeing their leader fall and surrounded by law enforcement, surrendered. Maya was pulled from the scene by FBI agents, in shock, ears ringing, shaking uncontrollably. Victor was placed in custody immediately, Marcus Webb ecstatic, finally having Victor where he wanted him. But Victor went quietly, calmly, as if this was exactly according to plan. Later, at FBI headquarters, Marcus interrogated Victor. That's when Victor played his final card. He'd been wearing a wire for months, recording everyone. "I have Detective Carver accepting bribes from Dimitri. I have recordings of Dimitri ordering attacks on civilians. I have evidence of corruption in your department, Marcus. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to let my attorney present a cooperation deal, or I'm going to release everything to every news outlet in the city." Marcus realized he'd been outmaneuvered. "You planned this. The whole thing." "Not all of it. The woman, Maya, she gave me the idea. She made me realize that maybe my empire doesn't have to end in blood. Maybe it ends in evidence." But there was a cost. Victor's cooperation meant testifying, which meant prison time even with a deal. His organization would be dismantled. His legitimate businesses scrutinized. He'd lose everything he'd built. Victor accepted, without hesitation. "I've been losing myself for years. At least this way, I choose how it ends." Maya was brought in to give her statement. When she learned what Victor had done, the wire, the evidence, the cooperation, she realized he'd been planning an exit since Anton died. Maybe even before. She asked to see him. Marcus, surprisingly, allowed it, a brief conversation through glass. "You were recording everything?" "Everything. Including our conversations." Maya felt the hurt bloom. "So you used me?"
No.
"I trusted you. There's a difference. Everything you said to me was real. Everything I felt was real. But I'm also a pragmatist. When you suggested using my resources to protect people, I realized I could do that on a larger scale. The evidence I've gathered will put away not just Dimitri, but dozens of corrupt officials and criminals. And you go to prison." "I was always going to end up in prison or dead, Maya. This way, it means something. This way, the man you saw in that restaurant, the tired one, the defeated one, he gets something close to redemption." 3 months later, the South District had changed. Not transformed into paradise. This wasn't that kind of story, but genuinely safer. With Dimitri's organization dismantled and Carver arrested, the neighborhood breathed easier. The community center had been rebuilt, funded by seized criminal assets and legitimate donations. It was larger, brighter, Maya's vision fully realized. A plaque near the entrance read, "In memory of Anton Volkov, who believed people could change." Maya had changed too. She was in therapy now, finally processing Lily's death and her own trauma. She'd learned to accept help. Keisha was co-director, and Maya took actual days off. She visited the kids injured in the fire, now recovering. Their families thanked her for keeping the center safe, for not giving up. She didn't tell them the full story of how that safety was purchased. Victor's cooperation had led to the largest corruption bust in the city's history. Over 40 indictments. Dmitry Kozlov faced attempted murder, racketeering, arson. Detective Carver got corruption, conspiracy, obstruction. 3 other high-ranking officials fell with them. As part of his deal, Victor received 8 years in minimum security. His legitimate businesses were placed in trust, his criminal assets seized. Marcus Webb got his promotion and headlines. In interviews, he credited a civilian consultant who risked everything to expose corruption, never mentioning Maya by name, respecting her request for privacy. Maya visited Victor in prison 3 months after his arrest. They'd written letters, but hadn't seen each other. The conversation was carefully observed by guards. They talked about simple things first, how the center was doing, how his business transition was going, books they'd been reading. Then Maya said, "I've been thinking about what you said. About deserving redemption. And I don't think we earn redemption. I think we choose transformation. You chose to turn your evidence over. You chose cooperation over war. That's not redemption. It's evolution. And you? What did you choose?" "I chose to stop punishing myself for surviving. I chose to accept that helping people sometimes means compromise. I chose to believe that people, even complicated ones, can surprise you. I hope I haven't disappointed you. You gave up your empire to protect a neighborhood you had no reason to care about. You recorded evidence for months, knowing it would cost you everything. How could that disappoint me?" They didn't make promises about romantic futures. Victor had 8 years. Maya had a life to build. But they had understanding, respect, genuine care. "When you get out, what will you do?"
I've been thinking about that.
"Maybe I'll volunteer at a community center. If the director will have me." Maya smiled. "I think she might. But you'll have to pay for your own lunch." Victor laughed, genuine. Maybe his first in years. That seems fair. The story ended with parallel scenes. Victor in the prison library helping another inmate prepare for a GED. He'd found purpose in small actions, teaching men who never learned, offering the structure and guidance he once used for criminal enterprises toward something better. Maya at the center, sitting beside a young girl who was angry and grieving, refusing to engage. "I lost my sister too," Maya said quietly. "I know it feels like you'll never be okay again. But you will. It takes time. And it takes letting people help." The girl, slowly, let Maya put an arm around her. Maya entered Montague's restaurant for a celebration dinner with Keisha and the board, marking their expansion. She noticed a tired-looking college student at a nearby table, counting change, trying to figure out if she could afford to eat. The girl looked defeated, overwhelmed, on the edge of breaking. Maya recognized that look. Without a word, Maya approached the maitre d', the young woman at table 7. "I'd like to cover her bill." As Maya returned to her table, the student received her food, confused and grateful. Later, as Maya left, the student stopped her on the sidewalk. "Excuse me, were you the one who paid for my dinner?" Maya smiled gently. "Someone did the same for me once. It changed my life. Maybe someday you'll do it for someone else." The student, tears in her eyes. "I will. I promise." Maya walked away into the city at night, lights reflecting off windows, people hurrying home. Life continuing in all its messy complexity. Cut to Victor watching the same night sky through prison windows. He held a letter from Maya describing this encounter. He smiled, folded it carefully, placed it with the others, a collection of hope kept safe. The camera pulled back, showing the vastness of the city, lights like stars, countless lives intersecting in ways they'd never fully understand. A single act of kindness rippling outward, touching lives in ways no one could predict. Fade to black. Final title card. Sometimes the smallest gestures create the largest transformations. If you made it to the end, you're exactly the kind of viewer we create these stories for, someone who appreciates moral complexity and characters who feel real. Don't let this be the last one you watch. Hit subscribe and join a community that loves stories where the answers aren't easy and the choices matter. See you in the next one.